Because we have this talk of America being a melting pot and America being an idea, right? And this idea of freedom and this idea of self-determination and hard work and all that. And I think we really need to open our eyes, take a step back and look at things and realize that, unfortunately, I mean, the ideal is true and the ideal exists and it makes America a great place to be. But there's many things in this country that don't adjust to that idea. So I am Juan Antonio Alonso. I'm originally from Spain, but I've been living in Tennessee for 13 years, Chattanooga for 8. I'm an adjunct instructor here at UTC. I teach Spanish at UTC, but I am also the director of the honors program at Chattanooga State. I'm kind of like a niche professional, right? Like there's very few Hispanics, very few foreign instructors in general at Chattanooga State. And as student enrollment from other nationalities and other ethnic backgrounds grows and increases in the college, there's very few people employed by the college who actually know or can relate to those students' experience firsthand. I'm from Europe, I'm from Spain. My family is sort of middle class. In Spain, I'm a white man. So my experience has been that of a white man. My own privilege was completely invisible to me, right? And I had never really been close to any kind of direct experience of discrimination or anything, you know, for me or for others. Also, like, you know, I was raised in the 90s, and the 90s were a very insensitive time, you know, for a lot of minorities and for a lot of smaller groups, right? And they were either invisible or bashed, right? And I was brought up in that culture. But working at Antioch, interestingly, I came in contact with all these students, many of whom were undocumented. And I learned about their stories. I learned how many of them have been brought here when they were like 1, 2, 3, 4 years of age. Many of them didn't even know they were undocumented. They were seniors already, and everybody was talking and making plans about going to college, and they will learn through their guidance counselors they couldn't because they were undocumented and there was no funding for them, and they had no access to federal funds of any kind, and they had to pay out-of-state tuition. And I was shocked to discover that no one else cared. But also, progressively, I realized that the problem these students have went beyond material needs, went beyond, I mean, that obviously is a huge problem, right? But it was also, there was a problem with invisibility. Like the reason why so many people believe the wrong information is because they were not visible, they didn't matter. There was nothing about them in the curriculum. There was nothing about them in the student organizations in the school, etc. When you look at the demographics of the US on paper, you realize that the country is perhaps like 55, 56% white, right? Which means 46% of the country is non-white. But then if you watch American movies or American TV shows, like the impression you get is that the country is like 96% white, right? And when you study US history, when you study US literature, like the perception is the same, right? You have to go to an African American literature class or to an Asian American culture class perhaps to learn anything about other groups, right? Which create this impression first, like they are not mainstream America. I think that it would be great if we could teach about Latino cultures in the US as part of the regular US history, regular American literature classes. And I wish that in those courses there would be more content about, you know, Latinos in the country. I think it's important because, first of all, it's the true history of the country. Like if you eliminate like the contributions of an entire subgroup of population, then it's much easier to make people believe that either those people are like a foreign element in our culture that could potentially be removed, and then the country will remain like pure, some people would say, right? Because again, in the traditional narrative of what this country is, that group is not present. So then you can remove it and nothing is lost. There's a lot of systems of power that exist to hold power in certain groups and to keep other groups from accessing that power, right? So I think that it will be important for people to just, lose fear to confront that, and thinking that by admitting that that's true, it doesn't mean they have to be punished, and it doesn't mean their life had to worsen. Perhaps their kids will have to face more competition, yes, because, you know, there will be more competition, but at the same time, isn't competition what makes America great, right? Isn't competition what makes us better and make us kind of motivate us to improve ourselves, right? So that extra competition from minorities would actually make America more America instead of less America, right? So again, I wish that people would learn to see America for what it really is and not for what they imagine it should be.